The morning Jacob Miller pulled his handmade plow into the regional farm show, the John Deere dealer laughed loud enough for half the pavilion to hear.
Look at this. You really think that thing can turn dirt? This isn't a museum, boy.
Jacob didn't flinch. He simply stood beside the gleaming steel share, his hands light on the polished oak handles.
That curve on the share. I've never seen anything like it. What's the purpose?
A handful of English farmers in feed caps drifted closer, their expressions a mixture of skepticism and curiosity.
Purpose? It's a gimmick. Amish equipment hasn't been relevant since my grandfather's day.
One farmer knelt to trace the edge of the moldboard. Another glanced back at the John Deere booth, then at Jacob's humble stand.
They don't understand yet. The land will speak for itself.
Kenneth turned away, still laughing, his dismissal hanging in the air like a challenge. But in the corners of the pavilion, a quiet question had been planted. What if this boy knew something they didn't? 3 winters before that farm show, Jacob found the notebook tucked behind a stack of rusted horseshoes. The leather cover was cracked, and the pages smelled of dust and old iron. On one page, in faded pencil, Abraham had written, "A share shaped like a wing will lift the earth, not tear it." Beside the words, a careful sketch of a plow share with an unusually deep curve.
This is what I've been looking for. Grandfather, you were onto something.
His father Elias found him at the workbench, the lantern burning low.
You've been in here since supper, Jacob. What have you found?
Grandfather's notebook. His plow design. Look at the share.
Abraham drew 100 things he never built. A drawing is not a plow.
That winter, the forge fire never went cold. The first time Jacob hitched the prototype to the mare, the share bit too deep and nearly broke the hitch.
A wing that lifts. Lift, not bury. I've got the angle wrong.
He rebuilt the hitch twice, reset the share 3 times. Each failure felt like a rebuke.
Patience, son. The land doesn't reward speed. Your grandfather spent years on this.
What if I can't make it work, Dade? What if it's a fool's errand?
Then you will have learned the shape of a good question. That's worth more than a plow.
Deep winter. The second year, he found the curve. He worked by lantern light, the shop so cold his breath ghosted. The third spring they pulled it through the south field. The soil turned dark and whole like a prayer answered. He ran his hand over the share, feeling the warmth left by the earth. It was done. The morning of the farm show, they loaded it onto the flatbed. His father watched from the shop door, silent. By mid-morning, they led the draft horses to the demonstration field. A crowd had gathered, more than before, drawn by the morning's talk. Sam Hines stood apart, arms crossed, squinting at the horses. He'd plowed more acres than he'd admit. Jacob clicked his tongue. The team leaned into their harness, and the curved share slid into the earth like a knife through butter.
Would you look at that? The horses aren't even straining. That's 30% less pull if it's a pound.
The furrow rolled over, dark and crumbly, with a fine texture no other plow at the show had produced.
That's just one pass. Any plow can look good in a demo. Wait till it hits hardpan.
But the farmers weren't watching Kenneth. They were leaning forward, some slipping under the fence to get a closer look.
They're seeing the soil, not the show. Grandfather, they're seeing what you drew.
When Jacob finished the run and turned the team, the crowd was silent. Not the silence of dismissal, but of calculation. For the first time all morning, no one laughed. After the crowd broke up, Sam Hines walked straight to Jacob's stand, his boots heavy on the dry grass.
That's the best plow I've ever seen work. How long to get me one?
Each one takes time. I can have it ready by the fall, if that suits you.
By the first snowfall, Sam's plow cut his winter cover, And by spring, the stories were spreading. The seedbed held moisture like a sponge. Neighbors stopped their trucks along the fence to stare. At the feed store on a Tuesday, two farmers weren't talking weather. They were asking if anyone had seen that Amish boy's plow work.
Beginner's luck. That plow won't last a full season. It's a fad. But the seed sales in my district are dipping. Could one boy and an old design shift that?
He pulled his monthly numbers. The small acreage segment showed a dip, a sliver, but one he couldn't explain away. That night, in the quiet of the shop, Jacob opened the notebook and wrote a new line. Sam's field is green. Grandfather, you would smile. By late April, the path to the shop was worn bare by English boots. Every week, more than the last, Jacob hung a board on the shop wall and wrote orders at the top. Below, 7 names.
We cannot build fast enough, Jacob. The forge is hot from dawn to dusk already.
Every name is a farmer trusting us. But if we rush, the quality suffers.
He split the list into seasons. Spring next year, maybe later. The wait stretched. Kenneth picked up the phone and dialed a seed supplier, his voice deceptively calm.
I've heard troubling things about those homemade plows. Cast iron share. I'd worry about breakage in rocky soil.
It wasn't cast iron. The share was forged steel. But the rumor had legs. At the workshop gate, another farmer pulled Sam aside.
That plow has held up better than any I've owned. Someone's trying to scare folks off.
Despite the rumors, the wait list doubled by early summer. 11 names, then 14. Then the letter arrived, postmarked from Ohio. The Regenerative Agriculture Conference wanted him to speak.
An invitation to speak before so many. That is a heavy thing, Jacob.
I will go, but I will only speak if they let me plow a field first.
He drove the horses 6 hours to a county fairground, the plow glinting under its tarp. Inside the hall, a screen displayed soil moisture data. 300 farmers leaned forward when the share cut the earth. A young farmer in the front row filmed the whole thing on a phone, his eyes wide. By midnight, the video had 40,000 views. Comments flooded in from Iowa, from Texas, from overseas.
This boy, he's not just selling plows. He's stealing my customers' trust. I'll have to do more than spread rumors. That Amish kid is a direct threat to my dealership.
That same night, Jacob sat at the kitchen table, the lantern low. Outside, the world wanted more of him than he could give.
You've been quiet since you came home. What's weighing on you, son?
All those people watching the video, they called it revolutionary. But this is just grandfather's drawing. Dade, what if all this attention makes me proud? We're supposed to be humble.
You are not proud. You are burdened. That's different. Just keep your hands on the work and your heart on the Lord.
In his office, Kenneth pulled down a dusty ledger from the shelf, his late father's handwriting curling on the pages.
1962, County Fair. There's a note about a miller here. Got into a dispute with Abraham Miller over a plow design. So my father had a run-in with their family over this. That's why they're so stubborn about that plow.
Across the county, Jacob closed the notebook and leaned back, the weight of his grandfather's legacy settling deeper onto his shoulders.
Grandfather, they'll never understand what you were trying to do. Not unless I make them see.
Jacob opened the notebook again, searching for a note on soil texture, when a corner he'd never noticed separated. He read, in Abraham's tighter hand, Mr. Bauer laughed at my sketch at the fair, called us obsolete. I pray my children's children will prove him wrong.
Kenneth's father, the same family who mocks us now. God has woven a hard thread.
He turned the page. There was more. A description of the day, the crowd, the sneer. I held my tongue, for the Lord sees all. But my heart ached for my work to be known. Jacob's hands trembled. The plow wasn't just a design. It was an answer to a prayer born of humiliation.
Grandfather, you carried this alone. Now I carry it with you.
He sat in the dark, the single candle burning low, the weight of it settling deeper.
Now I understand. This is more than a plow. It is a reckoning.
In the morning, he would speak to his father. But tonight, he sat with the silence and the truth. The morning sun was barely up when Jacob found his father at the kitchen table, the Bible open before him.
Dade, I found a page in the notebook about the county fair long ago. A man named Bauer.
You found it. I had hoped you never would. Your grandfather carried that hurt for years. I did not want the same for you. I wanted you to build the plow because it was good, not because of old pain.
Why didn't you tell me? All this time, I thought it was only a design.
Because I wanted you to prove him right with your hands, not your anger. And you have.
Jacob nodded slowly, the pieces of his grandfather's silence and his father's caution finally fitting together.
Then I will not answer with anger. I will answer with the plow.
That is the right way, son. The only way.
The forge fire that morning burned brighter than it had in years, and the hammer fell with a new certainty. The year was 1962. The county fair loud with the rumble of tractors and the scent of fried dough. Abraham Miller sat alone on a bench, a pencil moving over a notepad, sketching a curve no one else could see. A man in a sharp suit stopped in front of him, his name tag reading Bauer, his laugh already forming. He leaned down and said, "You Amish are a century behind. Your kind will never compete." The words landed like a rock. A few farmers nearby chuckled. Abraham's pencil stopped, but he didn't raise his head.
The Lord sees. The Lord will remember this day.
Later that night, he wrote in the corner of his sketch, "They will know one day." In the workshop, Jacob traced his grandfather's fading pencil, the same words, the same curve, the same curve.
They laughed at you, grandfather, but the land is starting to laugh with us.
The hammer struck the anvil once, twice, a steady rhythm that sounded like a heartbeat. A week later, a shiny black pickup pulled into the Miller farmyard, its engine a low growl that silenced the forge. Kenneth stepped out, a salesman's smile stretching his face, though his eyes swept the place like a buyer at auction. Elias had heard the truck and moved to stand beside Jacob in the shop door, his silence heavier than any greeting.
Jacob Miller? I am Kenneth Bauer. I've been hearing about your plow. Mind if we talk?
Jacob wiped his hands on a rag, his expression unreadable, and nodded toward the shop's interior. Inside, Kenneth circled the nearly finished plow, his fingers hovering over the share without touching it. Admiration or appraisal.
This design could go national. I can make it happen. You get royalties. My dealership gets the product. Everyone wins.
And what would you change about it?
Change? Nothing. You'd make them right here. We just market it. Think of the volume. You'd be a wealthy man.
Jacob did not answer. He leaned against the workbench, and the notebook sat inches away, a truth still unspoken. Jacob reached for the notebook, thumbing to the page with deliberate care. Kenneth's smile flickered.
Mr. Bauer laughed at my sketch at the fair, called us obsolete. I pray my children's children will prove him wrong.
That was a long time ago. People said things differently back then.
But the words stayed. They stayed with my grandfather for years.
Elias stepped forward, his voice quiet but cutting through the stale air.
Your father laughed at a man who only wanted the soil to give more life.
I'm not my father. I'm offering you a deal here.
Jacob closed the notebook, holding it against his chest as if it were armor. The room was silent except for the low crackle of the forge.
Would you have offered this deal 60 years ago? Or would you have laughed too?
Kenneth opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The memory of his father's cruelty was in the room now, thicker than smoke.
My grandfather's work is not for sale. Not to you. Not to anyone who mocks what we stand for.
You'll regret this. Without my distribution, You are just a boy in a shed.
Kenneth spun on his heel, the shop door slamming behind him. The truck engine roared and faded down the lane. For a long moment, neither Jacob nor Elias moved. The air felt scrubbed clean.
You just turned down a fortune, son.
We will teach others. Anyone who wants to learn, English or Amish, it makes no difference.
The forge is small, but the world is wide. If you teach them, they will come.
Grandfather's prayer was not for money, but that his work be known. This is the way.
That afternoon, Jacob wrote a simple sign and nailed it to the shop door. Apprentices welcome, no charge. The forge fire burned on, and the smoke rose into a sky that no longer felt so far away. The following Monday, a buggy and a pickup truck pulled into the yard at the same hour, their drivers staring at each other. Two boys stepped out, one in plain black, one in a feed store cap. They looked at each other, then at Jacob.
Today, we make nails. You'll learn the feel of steel before you ever touch a share.
He handed them each a hammer and tongs, and they stood before the forge like children at a blackboard. All morning, the anvil rang. The Amish boy worked silently. The English boy grunted with every strike, sweat beading on his forehead.
Steel doesn't ask if you are Amish or English. It only asks if you are willing to learn.
By noon, they'd made 3 nails each. The boys exchanged glances, and for the first time, they smiled. By evening, word had already spread. At the feed store, a farmer laughed. He's teaching them for nothing. What kind of business is that?
That boy isn't selling plows anymore. He's building an army of craftsmen.
That night, Jacob opened the notebook and wrote, 2 cane today. Tomorrow there may be 4. By the next planting season, the waitlist board had names penciled into the following year's columns. Jacob stood back and looked at it for a long time. At the feed store, Sam Hines leaned against the counter, and 3 men gathered around. He wasn't selling anything, but they all wanted to hear about the soil.
I've used green paint for 30 years, but that plow, my yields are up 12%, and I am spending half on repairs.
In his office, Kenneth stared at a spreadsheet. For the first time, the small acreage column had a negative sign. He had run a month-long discount on all his plows, and still, the numbers fell.
I cut prices 15%, and they still won't buy. They'd rather wait 2 years for something made by hand.
His senior mechanic, a man who had worked for the Bowers for 20 years, set down his wrench. He didn't say a word, but Kenneth saw him glance at the door. Outside, a farmer's truck rumbled past the dealership, a wooden sign in the bed. Miller Plow Co-op, sign up here.
Even my own staff are losing faith. How did it come to this?
That evening, Jacob added 2 more names to the wait list. Beside them, he wrote the date, 18 months out. He did not smile. He simply picked up his hammer and returned to the anvil, the rhythm of the forge steady as a heartbeat. The county paper hit the porches on a Thursday. Front page, Jacob beside his plow, and a headline that made farmers spill their coffee. The headline read, Amish craftsman's plow outsells John Deere in small acreage market. Farmers called it the best they'd ever used.
I told them, the numbers don't lie. My repair bills are down, my yields up. That plow is the real deal.
At the feed store, copies of the paper lay on the counter, circled and underlined. Men clapped Sam on the back.
This article is exaggerated. 1 season doesn't make a trend. Next year, the numbers will flip. They're quoting farmers like they're experts. This is a movement I can't stop.
Jacob stared at the photograph, his hands on the handles, and was quiet.
The paper writes about a plow, but grandfather's pencil wrote about something else.
All week, the shop phone rang, and Jacob kept the forge hot. He didn't celebrate in his office. Kenneth stared at the same page, a cold weight settling in his chest. The Monday after the article, the John Deere dealership stayed dark. Kenneth hung the for lease sign himself. His hands shook as he pressed it against the glass.
40 years. My father's name. Gone in 2 seasons.
He didn't sweep the floor or box the files. He just locked the door, climbed into his truck, and drove away. That same afternoon, Jacob found an envelope under the shop door. Inside, a single-page read. Jacob, your plow saved my spring. Thanks be to God and your hands.
This is the harvest, not money, people.
He pinned it to the wall, beside the waitlist board, and stepped back. Another letter already hung there, from a farmer in Ohio. The ink faded, but the words still clear. He picked up his hammer, and the forge fire seemed to nod. A year later, the same pavilion filled with the same smell of diesel and hay, but the John Deere booth sat dark and empty. Jacob stood on the main stage, the same place where he had once set up a modest stand. They introduced him as the keynote speaker.
My grandfather drew a picture of a plow that he believed could lift the soil, not tear it. I just followed his pencil. If you want to learn how the soil and the steel work together, come to our shop. All are welcome.
The crowd rose. Farmers in feed caps, soil scientists in polo shirts, even a few Amish families standing in the back. The applause was long. Through the open side of the pavilion, Jacob could see the empty space where Kenneth's dealership tent used to stand. He didn't stare.
The soil remembers everything. Grandfather, they know now.
He stepped down from the stage and was immediately surrounded by farmers. But he didn't talk business. He invited them to the workshop, everyone.
Last year, he was a curiosity. Today, he's the keynote speaker. Some things you can't measure with money.
As the crowd thinned, Jacob lingered by the plow on display, running his hand over the share one more time before heading home. Jacob stepped into the workshop, the day's noise falling away behind him. He walked to the workbench and opened the old notebook to a fresh page. The pencil felt small in his calloused hand. He stared at the blank space.
Levi and Ben. They made a plow today, from start to finish, with their own hands.
He wrote, "Today, Levi and Ben forged a plow on their own. Your design lives on grandfather." He paused, then added, "And your prayer has been answered." He set the pencil down. His lips pressed into a faint, gentle curve, a smile he kept only for this moment.
I only sharpened the steel. Grandfather, you dreamed it.
He closed the notebook, its leather cover warm under his palm. The lantern flickered, and he sat motionless, the silence filled with something ancient and sacred. The next evening, the fields glowed gold as Jacob walked the fence line. The draft horses grazed, their shadows long and still.
The soil is resting. So am I.
In the workshop, the anvil rang a lighter note. Levi and Ben worked side by side, no longer boys but craftsmen.
They don't need me to sharpen the share anymore. They sharpen each other.
He passed the waitlist board without stopping. The names were only proof now, not pressure. On the porch, Elias rocked slowly, his eyes on the horizon. He didn't need to speak. Jacob joined him, and the two men sat side by side in the quiet. The hammering stopped. The forge fire crackled lower. The horses nickered in the pasture. The land stretched on, and the work continued, carried forward by hands that had learned to lift the soil, not tear it. And the notebook, open on the workbench, waiting for whoever would write next. The John Deere lot stayed empty. Weeds pushed through the asphalt, but no one looked at it anymore. Abraham Miller's plow had changed the soil, but more than that, it had planted a seed that would outlast any harvest. The notebook had passed through 3 generations. Each one wrote a single line, and then the line became a field. Now it lay open on the workbench, its pages catching the last light of the sun through the dusty window. The forge fire had burned down to embers. The hammers were at rest. But the work was not finished. It was simply carried by others. in the fields. The draft horses stood patient. In the co-op, a young farmer thumbed through the notebook, already dreaming of a curve. The seed Abraham planted 60 years ago had taken root in soil that no longer knew his name, but would never forget his hands. The sun sank below the barn roof. The last light caught the spine of the notebook, then let it go. It was not an ending. It was a passing, and the land would carry the story until the next hand picked up the pen. Fade to black.